On August 23, 1944, as Allied forces pressed deeper into occupied France, a strange rumble echoed across the battlefield. Low, metallic, distant, and unlike anything soldiers on either side had heard before. Shadows moved through the smoke, enormous, armored giants that seemed almost invincible. Rumors spread faster than bullets, stories of a German supertank so powerful that entire Sherman platoons were said to vanish beneath its guns. But behind the terror, behind the thunder and steel, hid a truth no one knew at the time, a truth so shocking it would rewrite the legacy of Germany's most feared machine. What was this weapon really made for? And why, despite its terrifying might, did it fail to save the very nation that built it?
On August 23, 1944, the world of armored warfare changed forever. Dawn broke over the smoking ruins of northern France, and the air tasted of diesel, dust, and rain. Allied troops, battle-hardened veterans who had survived Tunisia, Sicily, and Normandy, moved cautiously across fields littered with the wreckage of war. Tanks groaned forward, engines whining beneath the weight of armor. Soldiers whispered quietly, rifles raised, senses alert. They had been warned. Something new had arrived on the battlefield, something built by the Wehrmacht, something no one could identify, something whispered about only in fragments. A monster. For months, Allied intelligence had intercepted scattered reports of a new German tank, bigger, thicker, deadlier than anything before it. Pilots flying overhead claimed to have spotted massive turrets, absurdly long cannons, hulls nearly twice the width of an American Sherman, yet no one had seen one up close, not clearly, not long enough to study. Tanks disappeared, patrols were flattened, units vanished, and what was left behind were bodies, burned metal, and silence. In one small village outside Falaise, witnesses remembered the ground shaking, as though the earth itself was groaning beneath something too heavy to carry. One French farmer swore he saw a house collapse just because the machine rolled past it. Another watched shells bounce uselessly off the German armor, sparking like stones against glass. Still, these were stories, wild, impossible. No one wanted to believe them, until that morning. The monster had arrived.
The tank was called the Tiger II, known later as the King Tiger, a weapon so powerful it changed the psychology of warfare. This was not just another armored vehicle, it was a statement, an iron promise, proof that the Wehrmacht would not go quietly into the night. The Tiger II was bigger than anything the Allies had ever built, nearly 70 tons of steel, thick frontal armor impossible to penetrate except at dangerously close range, and an 88mm gun that could reach out and destroy tanks long before the enemy ever saw it. Its crew felt untouchable, Allied troops felt doomed, and German command clung to hope that this machine, this beast, would reverse the direction of the war. But by the time it reached France, that hope was already dying. The war had turned. Germany was losing fuel, manpower, factories, and land, all at once. The Allies surrounded Paris. The Soviets marched west in unstoppable force. Hitler's empire was shrinking by the day. And in the middle of this chaos, the Tiger II rolled onto the battlefield like a myth summoned too late, trying to win a war already lost. Still, when Allied patrols first encountered it, they had no idea. American infantry outside the town of Mont watched a column of Shermans return from patrol. Only one tank rolled back. The others were missing. No sound of battle, no wreckage visible, just gone. Survivors claimed they had been ambushed by a single German tank. One shot, one Sherman gone. Another shot, Another vanished. They fired back. Their shells sparked and bounced as though striking a steel cliff. Panic spread. The radio crackled with fear. What kind of weapon could do this?
Word traveled through Allied ranks like lightning. Soldiers traded stories in hushed voices. Generals demanded explanations. Tank crews lost sleep. Something had entered the war that was different from anything they had ever known. The Tiger I had been terrifying enough, but this was worse. Many allies believed that the Tiger II was unstoppable, that Germany had created a superweapon built to destroy tanks, armies, and hope. But inside the German command structure, a very different truth was unfolding, one that would ultimately decide the fate of this iron monster. The Tiger II was powerful, yes, but it was also fragile in ways no one expected. To build such enormous armor and destructive force required materials and engineering far beyond what Germany could sustain. Every Tiger II tank needed hundreds of man-hours, tons of steel, and complex parts that German factories, bombed, starved, and short on manpower, struggled to produce. Even more devastating, the tank guzzled fuel faster than Germany could supply it. Crews sometimes spent more time parked and waiting for fuel trucks than fighting. And yet, when the tank moved, when it roared to life, when its cannon fired, none of that mattered. Soldiers believed in it, Hitler believed in it, and for a moment the Tiger II became the symbol of German defiance. As the sun rose higher over France that August morning, an American reconnaissance unit advancing through hedgerows suddenly froze. Ahead of them, through drifting smoke, they saw it. Massive, angular, crouched like a predator waiting for prey. A King Tiber. The crew whispered nervously inside their Sherman. "That's no tank. That's a battleship. We're dead." The Tiger II moved, slow, confident, as if it knew they couldn't hurt it. The Sherman fired. The shell hit the Tiger's front plate and shattered. The American gunner cursed. The German turret began to turn, impossibly smooth, like the movement of a giant eye settling on its target. The Sherman crew panicked. They fired again. Nothing. The Tiger II fired once. When the smoke cleared, the Sherman was gone. The monster moved forward. But even as it advanced, even as it crushed trees and fences beneath its treads, something else was happening, something no one on the field understood. The tank's massive weight sank into the muddy French earth. Its engines strained, its transmission groaned, the tracks slipped. The crew felt the machine tremble. The ground seized it. The Tiger II stopped. Its engine shrieked, choked, and died. The crew inside froze. Panic replaced pride. They were immobilized, forced to abandon their iron beast. And by nightfall, Allied engineers would study the wreck, astonished to discover that this invincible tank was vulnerable not to shells, but to the war around it. Suddenly, the myth cracked, and over the coming weeks, the truth would spread. The Tiger II was terrifying, but flawed, powerful, but impractical, a masterpiece, but a mistake. Germany's secret hope had arrived too late, demanded too much, and cost more than the Reich could afford. And while Allied soldiers feared it and commanders respected it, the machine itself could not escape the reality of war. Yet the story does not end here. What happened next would shape the final year of World War II and expose a secret the world never expected: that the very thing designed to save Germany may have helped destroy it instead. To understand how, we must go deeper into the Tiger II's origins, into the minds of the men who built it, and into the battles where it became both legend and ruin. The story of the Tiger II truly began long before its iron frame rolled into France. In many ways, it began with fear. Fear on all sides. As early as 1942, the German High Command realized the war was shifting beneath their feet. In the East, the Soviets were unleashing new armored designs that stunned German commanders, the T-34 and the KV-1. These machines absorbed punishment, moved fast, and collided with German lines in terrifying waves. On the Western Front, Allied Sherman production was accelerating at a pace that made German planners uneasy. The Wehrmacht could win battles, but the Allies could produce armies. Hitler became obsessed with creating something that could change the balance, something so superior that no enemy tank could challenge it, a weapon that would not just win battles, but crush morale. From this mindset, ideas and designs began to flow. The Tiger I, already massive and expensive, became merely the starting point. Germany wanted an armored Titan, one with thicker armor, greater firepower, more psychological weight. A tank that would not just defeat enemies, it would terrify them. This dream hardened into an order. Build something bigger. Build something unstoppable. Build something monstrous. The engineers at Henschel, already working at maximum strain, received requirements that seemed unimaginable. Hitler demanded at least 150 millimeters of frontal armor, sloped to deflect enemy shells. He wanted a gun powerful enough to destroy Soviet and Allied tanks from over 2 miles away. He wanted thick steel plating, a complex turret design, a heavy engine system, and, against the warnings of experts, a top speed that matched lighter tanks. It was a contradiction wrapped in steel. The engineers warned the Führer. Such ambitions came with consequences. The tank would be slow, heavy, fuel-hungry, and vulnerable to mechanical failure. But Hitler did not care. He believed in superiority. And at that moment in history, German engineering still possessed enough brilliance to make the impossible seem achievable.
As the design took shape, the cost grew. Factories struggled to produce components. Armor steel was becoming harder to manufacture. The Reich's industrial power, once the envy of Europe, was now strained by constant Allied bombing. Entire manufacturing districts lay in ruins, blackened and silent. Skilled workers were dead or drafted. Materials were scarce. But the project pushed forward. When the prototype for the Königstiger, King Tiger, rolled into view for the first time, the machine stunned the German High Command. It looked like a tank from another world. Angular, enormous, nearly twice the height of a man, it appeared less like a vehicle and more like a bunker on tracks. The 88mm KWK-43 cannon stretched outward like a spear meant to pierce the future. In firing trials, shells punched through thick metal plates that no Allied weapon could match. Every impact left a perfect hole. The Tiger II fired with the accuracy of a sniper and the devastation of artillery. Hitler watched and smiled. Here, he believed, was the answer to Germany's fading hope. But beneath that triumphant moment lurked an unspoken truth. The Tiger II weighed almost 70 tons. Its engine, originally designed for lighter tanks, strained just to move it. The transmission overheated, gears slipped, suspension cracked. Tests revealed broken components again and again. Fuel consumption was catastrophic. Logistics officers begged the High Command to reconsider. German soldiers in the field were already struggling to supply trucks, armor, and aircraft. The Tiger II would require more fuel than 3 Panzer IVs combined. And yet, Hitler ordered production. Retreat was unthinkable. Surrender unacceptable. Victory, he believed, was still possible. The Tiger II would bring it. When the tanks entered service in 1944, crews initially greeted them with awe.
They climbed into armored interiors lined with thick plating, instruments, radios, heavy shells. The gunner's scope provided a crystal-clear view of distant targets. The loader handled ammunition so large and powerful that it shook the turret when secured. Driving the tank felt like steering a steel monster, every movement accompanied by the grinding growl of machinery. Inside the Tiger II, men felt invincible. They believed they were inside the greatest weapon ever built. They believed nothing could kill them. But outside the tank, the war tightened. German towns fell, rail lines collapsed, supply convoys vanished beneath Allied bombing. Tank engines desperately needed for the Tiger II, rolled off factory lines only to be destroyed in transit. Crews reported shortages of replacement parts. Mechanics cannibalized broken tanks just to keep others running. And yet, in battle, the Tiger II performed exactly as intended, at least at first. In Normandy, near the village of Saint-Fromont, a single King Tiger held off waves of Allied armor for hours. Its shells tore through Shermans and Cromwells as if they were paper models. One after another, Allied tanks exploded in bursts of fire, ammunition cooking off, turrets flying loose. Survivors described the experience like a nightmare, shots that missed because the tank fired from impossible distances, shells that struck them before they knew where to aim. Near Caen, the 503rd Heavy Tank Battalion scored dozens of kills without losing a single Tiger II in direct combat. American commanders scrambled for new tactics. British officers ordered artillery bombardments before armor assaults. Allied soldiers whispered about the monster with trembling voices. That fear became its own weapon.
And yet, amid these victories, the tank's weakness revealed itself. Once in motion, the Tiger II was magnificent, but when bogged down, trapped, or cornered, it became a coffin. In France, mud swallowed them whole. In Poland, mechanical breakdowns spread through battalions like disease. One tank overheated and caught fire during a routine march. Another snapped its track and slid into a ditch, its weight impossible to recover under fire. Crews found themselves abandoning tanks not because they were destroyed, but because they simply could not move. Scorched tanks lined roads. The Allies approached cautiously, marveling at armor they had not pierced, guns they had not silenced. Sometimes they found ammunition untouched, engines intact, radios still tuned. The tanks had not been conquered, they had surrendered to physics. Yet the legend kept growing. Allied intelligence officers reported sightings with disbelief. Stories circulated that the Tiger II could kill an enemy tank from 3 miles away. Some believed it was immune to every Allied shell. Pilots claimed they saw tanks that looked twice as large as normal. The myths inspired terror, and terror inspired caution. Allied tank crews slowed their advances, fearing ambush. American soldiers prayed not to encounter one. The Tiger II changed battlefield psychology, regardless of how few actually existed. Inside Germany, however, the move was different. Officers grew frustrated. Crews complained of constant repair. Mechanics cursed the machine they could barely service without cranes and heavy trucks. Fuel shortages became devastating. Some Tiger II crews received only enough gasoline to run their engines for 2 hours per day, barely enough to move through forest or town. Hitler demanded that the tanks reach the Eastern Front, but transportation was impossible. Rail yards were bombed, tracks were destroyed, bridges collapsed. The King Tiger had become too heavy for the country that built it. Still, hope persisted in the chaos. Hitler believed that one decisive battle could change everything. He placed his faith in fortresses of iron. And so, in December 1944, deep in the snow-covered forests of the Ardennes, the greatest test of the Tiger II began, the Battle of the Bulge. It would be the tank's most dramatic moment, its last chance to alter the course of history. Success meant survival. Failure meant collapse. For the crews inside these machines, the stakes were painfully clear. Many of them were barely trained, rushed into service as the war consumed every able-bodied man. They were young, exhausted, terrified, yet they carried the weight of a nation's fading hope. The Tiger II, once a symbol of unstoppable power, had become a symbol of desperation. Through snow and ice, engines roared to life. Columns moved through forests and villages, tracks crunching frozen ground. The sound of steel echoed across the Ardennes as Tiger IIs advanced toward American lines. In front of them, the enemy was unprepared. Behind them, fuel trucks struggled to keep up. The German offensive surged forward with shocking force, and for a brief moment it looked as though the King Tiger might succeed where every other weapon had failed. But destiny had already chosen its direction. To understand how the Ardennes offensive shaped the fate of the Tiger II and the war itself, we must go deeper into the days that followed, into the fire and snow where hope began to break.
The Ardennes in December 1944 was a world turned white. Snow blotted out the horizon, turned forests into walls of bone, muffled the clank of steel, and swallowed the roar of engines. For the German crews inside the Tiger II tanks rolling toward American lines, the cold was brutal. Inside their armored hulls, breath hung in the air like smoke. Metal froze to bare skin. Ammunition felt like ice. The men shivered, not just from winter, but from the weight of fate pressing against them. The Battle of the Bulge, the final great gamble of Hitler's war machine, had begun, and at the heart of the offensive, the Tiger II was expected to deliver a miracle. The German plan was simple in theory and desperate in reality. Break through the American lines, capture Antwerp, split Allied forces in two, and force Western powers to negotiate. Hitler believed that once the Allies were fractured, Germany could turn its strength against the Soviet Union. He was confident that the Tiger II, with its massive gun and nearly invulnerable armor, would punch a hole through the Allied front and drive panic into the heart of American troops. He believed that fear alone could turn the tide. On the morning of December 16th, the Ardennes erupted in chaos. Artillery fire shook the frozen earth. German troops surged forward through dense forests and narrow roads. Tiger IIs led the spearhead of several armored units, their engines rumbling deep like the growl of buried giants. One of the most famous groups, led by the ambitious and ruthless SS officer Joachim Peiper, advanced rapidly toward Stavelot and beyond. Peiper believed he was guiding a hammer of destiny, and the Tiger II was the head of that hammer. The massive tanks ripped through thin American defensive lines, overwhelming outposts that never expected a major offensive so deep in winter. Shermans flared like dry leaves under the Tiger II's cannon. Roads filled with burning vehicles and abandoned equipment. Entire platoons surrendered at the sight of the King Tiger barreling toward them. For a moment, fear ruled the battlefield. But beneath the surface of this ferocity, the old weakness returned: fuel. The Tiger II consumed gasoline at a staggering rate, and German supply trucks struggled through icy roads, constant air attacks, and poor communication. Tank crews rationed every drop, inching forward on fumes, praying for resupply. Peiper himself abandoned multiple Tiger IIs, not from battle damage, but from empty fuel tanks. The dreaded machine that defied enemy fire could not defy mathematics. And as supplies dwindled, the Tiger II's greatest strength, its size and power, became its greatest liability. Still, in direct combat, the machine remained terrifying. Near La Glaise, American tank crews found themselves trapped between frozen earth and iron death. A Sherman platoon attempted to flank a Tiger II column, hoping to strike from the side where armor was thinner. But snow slowed them, fog blinded them, and when they fired, their shells cracked uselessly against German steel. The Tiger II responded with thunder. 2 Shermans exploded in seconds, crews lost before they could even register what had happened. Survivors spoke in haunted voices, calling the tank invincible. Some believed bullets couldn't pierce it, others believed shells bounced like pebbles. The legend grew larger than life. If only the legend were enough to win a war. The Ardennes offensive soon collapsed beneath its own ambition. The Germans advanced faster than their fuel and supplies could follow. Roads jammed, engines froze, snow thickened. American resistance hardened, and once the fog lifted, Allied air power returned with terrifying force. Fighter bombers screamed across the sky, raining destruction on German armor. Tiger IIs, once unharmed by ground fire, now found themselves exposed, unable to escape without fuel, vulnerable from above. Even when bombs failed to pierce the armor, the shock waves ripped tracks apart, flipped tanks over, or buried them in snow and debris. The Battle of the Bulge, once a vision of German triumph, turned into a graveyard for the King Tigers. One by one, crews abandoned their machines rather than let them fall into enemy hands. Some were destroyed with explosives, others were left intact, engines still warm, radios still tuned. Empty beasts, silent in the snow.
In mid-January, the offensive ended. Germany had spent its last major reserves, its fuel, its soldiers, its armor, its hope. And the Tiger II, intended as a symbol of resurrection, had become a monument to futility. But the war was not over. In the east, the Red Army pushed forward with unstoppable momentum. Entire German divisions disintegrated under the pressure of Soviet firepower. Cities fell. The front collapsed. Hitler, ever delusional, ordered Tiger IIs to hold positions even when ammunition ran dry. Outside Berlin, 1 battalion received orders to defend a bridge against overwhelming Soviet armor. The crews knew the mission was impossible. They also knew that abandoning their tanks meant execution. The Tiger II units rolled forward into the ruins of battle. Snow and dust swirled around them. When the Soviets arrived with T-34s and IS-2s, the Tiger II crews opened fire with precision. Enemy tanks erupted in fire. Steel shrapnel rained from the sky. Once again, the Tiger II proved fearsome, a titan of destruction. But the Soviets kept coming. More tanks, more infantry, more artillery. The Germans fell back. Tracks broke. Engines stalled. 1 tank, trapped between rubble and fire, was hit by a Soviet shell that slipped through a weakened weld seam, an unlikely strike in an unbeatable armor plate. Another Tiger II ran out of shells and kept firing blanks just to delay the enemy. Their final stand was over. The Eastern Front collapsed entirely. Tiger IIs that remained operational retreated towards Berlin. Those that could not move were destroyed or abandoned. As Soviet artillery thundered nearer, the German capital prepared for its final chapter. Inside that crumbling city, 2 Tiger IIs took up defensive positions among shattered buildings and burning streets. Their crews, now veterans of terror and survival, knew the end was near. They watched Soviet armor push forward, wave after wave. And though the Tiger IIs fired brilliantly, 1 tank taking out over a dozen enemy vehicles, the result was the same. The Soviets advanced. The Reich fell. Hitler died. And on May 2nd, 1945, Berlin surrendered.
When the dust settled, the Tiger II remained a paradox. It had terrified enemies, destroyed countless tanks, and reshaped battlefield tactics. Allied crews who encountered it never forgot the fear. German crews who operated it never forgot the pride.
and historians who study it never forget the contradiction it embodied. A masterpiece of engineering that arrived too late. A weapon of unmatched power held back by math and fuel. A titan of steel that proved both invincible and doomed. In the years after the war, abandoned Tiger IIs were recovered from forests, fields, and rivers. Some were rusted shells, torn apart by explosives. Others were almost pristine, engines intact, paint still visible. Engineers examined them with fascination. Many experts concluded that if Germany had produced the tank earlier, perhaps 2 years earlier, the war might have lasted much longer, cost far more lives, and reshaped the world in unknown ways. Others argued that the Tiger II was the ultimate example of German over-engineering, brilliant but impractical, lethal but unsustainable, imposing but blind to reality. Yet among the tank crews who lived through the terror of facing it, and among those who sat behind its cannon, the legend still lives. The Tiger II remains a symbol of absolute mechanical might, a tank whose presence alone altered the psychology of war. Its failures were real, its flaws were fatal, but its impact was unforgettable. Even today, the sight of one in a museum, towering, brutal, silent, still evokes awe and unease. The iron monster that rolled out of German factories in 1944 continues to cast a shadow across history. And now, at last, the mystery can be answered. Remember the question raised at the beginning of this story? Why did this terrifying weapon fail to save the nation that built it? The truth is both simple and tragic. The Tiger II was never just a machine. It was a symbol of a crumbling empire trying to survive through fear and force. A weapon designed for victory, deployed in a world already lost. Its power was real, but the war had moved beyond power. No single tank, no matter how immense, could stop the collapse of a nation running out of fuel, materials, men, and time. The Tiger II shocked the world. It terrified enemies and inspired myth. But myths cannot win wars. The steel giant could not hold back the tide. And in the end, the monster built to save Germany only revealed a deeper truth, that even the strongest machine is powerless when history has already chosen its direction.